Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are. It is December the 23rd, 2020 year. Welcome to the Facebook Q&A on the Present Moment Centered group. We are here with our normal panel is not, everybody's not here. A couple of people are running late. So we are joined with April, who is a psychic and a channel and a medium, a spiritual teacher. Welcome, April. We have Kelly. I'm sure everyone is familiar with Kelly, who is a Qigong teacher, and our incredible Eileen that is going to keep us streamlined. Very much on track, right? We're going to be like a well-oiled machine. Thank you so much, Eileen. So I do have a almost like a public service announcement kind of thing. The reason being, and April and Kelly and Eileen can speak to it, 21st of December, the winter solstice was a huge planetary change for the planet. So what I would suggest to everyone, or recommendation, whether it's up to your presence power to follow it or not follow it, but what I would say is use this period of transformation to your benefit. Working with one person, I've always told them for the past 10 months, I've done one-on-one consultation, and I've always told this person, what is most important is your sleep, your meditation, your nutrition, and do your spiritual breathing. So this is the time, and it being right before Christmas, bring your Christ consciousness. Right now is the time to bring your Christ consciousness. So not only is it that it benefits our own spiritual growth, I've noticed this, we were discussing this right before we went live, that during group meditation, quite a few members have had, incredible insights. It's like indescribable bliss during the group meditation in the insight that they came through. And it's just between the Facebook Live and the group meditations that they've made this transformation. And this is available to everyone. Please focus on your presence power, right? And that will also help. What I've noticed is during the group meditation, and that's why I'm like almost like inner smile comes onto my whole being when Eileen joins or Gracie joins or Lakshmi joins they joined early on the group meditation, because I know the shared energy field is going to be so strong that they're going to hold the presence power. So I want April to start. Please speak to this period. Thank you.
There. Oh. I agree. I agree that this time of the year is a powerful time every year, but especially this year, we have more energy, and I do think that there is more energy at this point, and I think that there is more concentration, or you could concentrate more, or your intentions could be stronger as far as bringing in the Christ consciousness, or bringing in manifesting what you would like in your future. But I think that's a daily all year practice. I think we can put special intentions on this time per se, because we have the Star of Bethlehem and we have Saturn and Jupiter, it's special. But I would say, like you are saying, if you're counseling somebody for 10 months, that it is something that you practice all year. So that's my advice, is to make it intentional all year to bring in what you want to manifest the life that you want to be in your body, to be conscious.
Thank you, April. And it almost is like the planetary alignment actually helps us raise the vibrational frequency, right? So use it to know of growing your presence power. And this is the presence power, and I can feel it during the group meditation, because somehow the energy merges with the other. I experienced this Sunday with Marla, right? And I've experienced it with different group meditators. Like they'll be asking or speaking about an experience, and something happens, and the energy field merges with the other, and then something comes, we say something, right? And it's like total resonance between the two beings, even though we are two separate physical bodies. It's almost like we merged and almost harmonized together. And that becomes a transcendent experience. So we had quite a few, and what I notice is it's that energy field. And that's why when I post about the group meditation, I always say, give yourself the gift of the shared field of presence, because that is the shared, that's the, you should have seen, there was one Sunday that somebody spoke about their traumatic experience, and I could see how still everyone was. And I know Sujata, Gracie, and Lakshmi were there. Others, Louise was there, I think. But I could feel like the group. I could feel the stillness, and this is what Eckhart is calling the presence power in a collective, that we can have that kind of presence power, because to pull another person's incredible momentum, like it's like a wild river of thoughts and pain body. To pull them out of the pain body, we ourselves need to be rooted, right? If you're not rooted, we cannot pull them out. And it'll just be two people becoming thinking mind to thinking mind, energizing each other. So I would say use this time, like April says, and I'll hand it over to Kelly. You want to speak about the time period that it is right at this moment, Kelly? Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, April.
Thank you, April. Very much agree with what you said, April, about accessing Christ consciousness is something that is a daily activity, should be a daily discipline. Christ consciousness is accessed and activated in a person's body by their level of understanding of their patterns and programming and conditioning, and how well they can control their shadow and their triggers and still their mind and step into observation. This is why meditation is important. This is why it's really, really important to be rooted, as you said, Punam. It's more importantly not to necessarily base your rootedness in your mental awareness, but in your physical practice with your body, your nutrition, your diet, your exercise, your patterns of physical awareness. How where you are of your body determines how where you are of your shadow, because your shadow will always try and pull you out of alignment and back into ego-based internal dialogue and pull you out of alignment with your heart. Right now, understanding that stellar alignments are just as important to pay attention to as physical alignment and emotional mental alignments. Is, a lot of chatter out there, a lot of information about the planetary alignments. And this is a great topic, because one of the things I've noticed is that a lot of effort over the last few hundred years has gone into dismissing astrology and astronomy. And the thing about humans is that we are on this planet that is part of a solar system. And there are things going on in the solar system, just like there are things going on in our bodies. So paying attention to the actual deeper stellar solar electromagnetic interactions, the energetic interactions, the photon interactions, the sun flares, the stellar interactions in our solar affect us on this planet. This planet is a part of this solar system and the universe. So when things happen in our solar system, like planets aligning, this is very much like chakras coming into alignment. Very much the same kind of parallel, very much the same kind of reality. However, it is sort of out there, right? And, vaguely pointing wherever all that's going on. And it's a really good opportunity to go inside and listen to how we feel about that kind of information, to understanding that there is stuff going outside of us that affects us on a very subtle level. It's kind of like acupuncture for the body or getting a chiropractic adjustment, because what's basically happening when planets align is that it's like your vertebrae are coming into alignment, or there's more alignment happening in the same kind of context as an acupuncture a treatment, cranial sacral adjustment, chiropractic adjustment, or massage, because this is all sort of part of the whole paradigm of things in the external world mirroring things that we are experiencing on a spiritual level and an energetic level. So paying attention to stellar events is really, really important. It's something that I've considered very important, especially with my meditation practice and my Qigong and the Bagua. And the Qigong that I do and that I teach is all about connecting to the earth. Because when you connect to the earth and you have that physical point of reference for being rooted in your body and rooted with the earth, then you do wake up energetically to the grander subtleties of stellar events. Again, there are a lot of websites out there with information about the relevance of the planetary alignments that are going on, understanding the symbolic nature of the planets and the historical evolution of the symbolism of the planets is really, really important to understand how people view certain psychological archetypes, because you have the evolution of the pantheons from ancient times, where we have developed this understanding of personality archetypes, psychological archetypes, and how they affect us and how they cause us to view things. So understanding the subtleties of the world around us, such as stellar events, is really important because it helps give personal context, or just context in general, for things that are happening in life. Not that I'm saying it's like, oh, you should like go out and like blame the darn planets for like everything that's going on, because that's how the world works. No, what I'm saying is go and find out about what the planetary alignment means and what people are saying about it, so that you can understand your own personal context, so that you can go inside and reflect on what that information means to you and why, and how the information about the planets may actually reflect some of the deeper dialogues you've actually been having with yourself.
Thank you, Kelly. And I feel like one of the stressors that I always had was sleep. A lot of people underestimate that they need to sleep by 8, 9 p.m., like follow the circadian rhythm. Because the moon, the magnetic pole of the moon is a reflection of our spirit. So the magnetic pole, like you want to wake up as the sun is coming up. And that's why I'm guessing, like in China and in India, the meditation is done at 4 a.m. in the morning, right? The guru will wake you up and make you sit in meditation by 4 a.m. because they want you to follow that circadian rhythm and get your body. The yoga, the union is that, right? your body in alignment with the whole planet, because this body and this cosmos is one. The more this physical body is in alignment with all the planets, the more presence power, or what Eckhart calls awareness or inner alignment with inner beingness, you can feel your life force to a greater extent, the more in alignment we are with the planet. So sleep is as important as your meditation. Sleep is a return to source, the same thing as meditation. So if you say, oh, I did 4 hours of meditation, now I don't need to sleep. No, your sleep is as equally important as your 4 hours of meditation, right? So thank you, Kelly. Eileen, did you want to speak to, I know you've increased your meditation practice, you just said right before this Facebook Live. So if you want to put in some insights, thank you.
Yeah, I meditate 3 times a day now, at least. And the only thing that I would say about that specifically is that I find that I don't need as much sleep. I know that how important sleep is, and I make sure that I get, a solid night every night. But I just have found that I will wake refreshed on less sleep since putting that presence in throughout my day. And it also helps me with everything else, like work. I don't think I have anything to add to the initial question or topic. I don't think. Again, this is the second week in a row that I have child on the one hip, so it's a little distracting.
Thank you, Eileen.
He's listening. He has 2 questions already for Kelly, but I don't know that they're either that could be answered here, but
Okay,
I'll put them in the box.
great. Thank you. So if you'll remember last week, we were talking about, I think Candy presented this question about acceptance. What does acceptance feel like? And we missed a comment from Marla, and that's the one that I put in chat. So then can resistance be understood to be the same as denial? So April, if you want to talk about it, can resistance be understood to be the same as denial?
It's almost like a trick question, right? Because you could say no, but then you could say yes. Denial, I don't really know. That's one I almost have to think about, because denial is like not believing, not thinking it's true. But resistance is a more of a not allowing or fighting. So I'd almost have to say no, they're not the same. They sound similar. They can be in the same line. But if you're resisting something, it's more like a block. Denial, well, that's a block too. See, I don't know. I'm talking in circles. I'm not sure. I don't, that one I would have to think about. I think they're similar and they can be.
What does
But-
denial mean? What does denial mean?
Well, if you're denying, see, the thing is though, is that you can know something's true, but you can still be in denial. You cannot want to believe it, even though deep down you may know that it's true. Or you may say, I always knew that was true, but I didn't want to believe it, which is similar to resistance. So I don't know, I might have to let Kelly clarify that, because there's a fine line, I think, with that one. I'm not sure. I would have to think about it.
So resistance to me is once we experience the alignment with inner beingness, any vibrational change, even if it's a little bit of lowering of the vibrational frequency, then that's resistance of the mind. Like the thought has arisen, or some kind of emotional field has arisen, and there's resistance. Now, very clearly, we can see that anger is resistance, frustration is resistance, annoyance, irritation is resistance of the mind, right? Being angry is the resistance of the mind. So resistance to me is like your emotional field. We're giving it a word,
Yeah.
but it's not word. So Marla, resistance is actually a shift in vibrational frequency, because when we are in alignment, we actually are experiencing the high quality of gratitude, loving kindness, empathy, compassion, humility, gratitude, I've already said. So when we are experiencing those emotions, then we are aligned completely. Because if you were to say, what does planetary intelligence at that moment, if we were planetary intelligence and looking at the situation, then how is God going to look at that situation with unconditional love, right? With one of those, either gratitude or loving kindness and compassion. They couldn't be anything different, right? For planetary intelligence. So the resistance is of the mind. Something arose and caused resistance. That's my own experience of what resistance feels like. And it doesn't even have to be, it can be a little bit of tiredness. One thing Eckhart says is this low-lying discontent, right? Oh, I'm not, there's unease, like there's something wrong. I need something in the future moment. I don't need this present moment. That unease is also resistance. Discontent, this lack in incompleteness is resistance.
But that's different from denial. But I think that they're in the same line though, that they're almost synonymous, like in a way.
Kelly, did you want to speak to it? Resistance.
Yes, sure. I completely agree with what April said, that there's a really fine line. I would, yeah, and this is a big topic because you both have touched on it, and both resistance and denial are both conscious and unconsciously done or participated in. And yes, when you have aligned with your heart, your shadow defense mechanisms, your reptilian brain will come into play to try and hijack you back into your normal little box of emotional limitation. And the more you work on yourself, the more you will uncover patterns of resistance and denial. And they tend to go hand in hand. I would not say that they're the same thing. I would not want to just sort of blindly lump them together, because as you evolve and age as a person, they will flip and your emotional landscape will change. Like when you're a kid, you don't understand that you're in resistance to something. You'll just have a straight emotional reaction to something and not really think about it or understand that you are caught in a programmed response or programmed trigger. And you can, as you get older and you look back, I mean, hindsight's always 2020. So this is sort of one of those questions where it's just like, yeah, but, and no, but, it's sort of one of those things where, when we're kids, we can understand we don't like something and we can resist it And we can even have our own, child version of denial. When we get older and we become adults, things tend to get more complicated if we're stuck in our heads, because our ego likes to make things, super complicated and twist everything up so that we do not even understand that we're in denial, or that we are resisting something, seeing something, feeling something. This is why having a personal practice, meditation, qigong, yoga, martial arts, weightlifting, running, walking, whatever, is super, super important, because that gives us our baseline of understanding our own internal space, our own heart alignment, our own internal space, our ability to feel when we encounter resistance, especially when we start stepping back into observation. Poonam, as you said, when we begin to experience that inner alignment and inner beingness, inner spaciousness, our defense mechanisms will resist. Our programming that wants to keep our programming alive and keep feeding off of the drama and the emotional imbalances will keep trying to hook us back into that pattern and keep us from going inside. I know the transition for me, this is a really, really, it's complex, but it's also simple, right? It's sort of one of those things where it's just like, yes, but no, because there's so many different ways it can be interpreted. And for me, like the yes, in terms of like they're both the same thing, is that feeling of going inside and finding a space that I didn't want to look at. Because when I find a space that I didn't want to look at, and when I have found those spaces in the past, I realized that there was this hidden energy of resistance inside, and that I was in denial that was there. Although I could feel the resistance, I didn't understand that I was in denial that resistance was there, right? That kind of, that makes sense, but it's also, there's a lot more to it. Like, there's a lot to this. It's a simple question, but it's sort of one where it's like joy and happiness. It's like, well, I'm joyful and I'm also happy, but they're not exactly the same thing, right? You can feel inner bliss and love for something, but then there's also like the very specific connections to specific events of happiness or situations that bring you happiness, right? So that's sort of where I would look at this as, yes, risk and denial are the same thing, but our programming and our egos have this twisted sort of logic of how they turn resistance and denial into this real complex thing where one is used to hide the other. And that's where it gets confusing. So the important thing to understand is that our ego wants to hide our feelings and our informations all the time. Our shadow wants to hide our inner knowing and wants to hide from us our connection to our heart and our ability to connect with our heart, and not see how things that when we were kids and how things have evolved as we become teenagers and grow into adults, and how we like to pile on denial after denial after denial, and which creates this huge program story of resistance of looking at certain things. So they go hand in hand. Hey, Travis. They go hand in hand, but they're not exactly the same thing, because one is often used to hide the other. But it boils down to feeling. The way that I would say that they are exactly identical is by the feeling. Energetically, emotionally, mentally, or whatever. The feeling for me of resistance and denial, it feels the same way. There are just sometimes different levels of depth of information behind that resistance or denial.
Thank you, Kelly.
I have an example, Poonam, that might help because I think Travis or Kelly and I are, it's a difficult topic to differentiate. When my youngest daughter was born, she failed her hearing test, and in my state, it's mandatory that all children are tested at birth now, so that they don't end up 5, 6 years old and they're deaf. That's why they're not learning. So it's mandatory. So she failed it, and I was 100% in denial. 100%. Nope, my kid is fine. I did everything right. So then I end up having to get another test. They tell me she failed it, and I'm just like I know that I want to believe that she can hear, but she couldn't hear. So then I'm in Ann Arbor and I'm doing a 5-hour brainstem test on her at 2 months old. And the brainstem test tells you where the hearing loss is, why it is, how much it is, and she failed it. I sat there for 5 hours with her in my arms, sleeping at 2 months old, and she failed the test. And the guy's explaining to me at the end that her loss is in her cochlear. She didn't get enough hairs. Her nerve is good. Her drum's good. All this is good. And tears are just streaming down my face, just streaming. And I looked at him and he said, she's not 100% deaf. We have to get her hearing aids. And I said, I think I'm in denial. And he said, this is not denial. You are not in denial. You don't want this, but you're not, because I'm just streaming tears. So I think that's a very clear example of a difference. I didn't like it, but I knew it was real at that point. So.
Thank you, April. We're talking about, maybe you cannot see it, Travis. I'll repost it. Can resistance be understood to be the same as denial?
Are you asking me to have a stab at it?
Did you want to speak on resistance of the mind, of the thinking
Sure.
mind? Go ahead.
Sure.
Because we were talking about surrender, acceptance last time, right? So Marla put another question that we missed last week. So
Okay, I see. That's where it's coming from. Okay.
Coming from there. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I'm just jumping in a little late here, so pardon me and thanks. Nice to join everyone. Hey, I liked what I heard April say just now. I feel like she did a good job of discerning. Because the thing is different words have different meanings to different people at different times. So we assign meaning to words. And so sometimes denial, I think the way it's used can mean resistance, like a kind of non-acceptance or a pulling away, aversion. It can be used in that way, but I think that in the more extreme definition of the word, or more kind of black and white definition of the word, denial can mean, if you're denying something to yourself, right? If you're denying something to somebody else, well, then it might be so, but you're just denying it to them. But if you're denying something to yourself, you could be in a place where you're not, it simply isn't so to you, even though it is so. And that's just like absolute denial, like all the way, 100%. And so it sounds like that's what April was differentiating from resistance, which is you know that it's the case. It's difficult to accept. You're resisting it, but you're not denying that it's so. You're just struggling with accepting it. And so I think those two words, they can overlap a little bit, and they can vary in meaning, and they can vary in degree. And I think the important, or perhaps one important takeaway might be that is to acknowledge, and this is something I do with myself. I acknowledge the fact that I deceive myself, that I'm very good at it, and I never know when I'm doing it. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to. And so, if we understand that that's something that humans do with themselves, then we can begin to work to be as honest as we can be with ourselves. And so that's a good takeaway, I think, from looking at resistance and denial is, can I be honest with myself? Can I, even if it's difficult to accept? And then in turn, the more honest I am with myself and the more honest I am with life, the more honest and gracious I would be able to be with others, because I don't see how I could be all too much more honest with others than I am with myself. So that's my answer.
Thank you, Travis. Thank you,
Mhm.
April, for the example. The one thing from Kelly's conversation, I would say, is if anybody is interested in shadow work, the late Debbie Ford is like a pioneer here in the United States on shadow work. She may have students now, she's passed away, but there is, I think, on YouTube, it was played on the Oprah Winfrey Network as part of Super Soul Sunday. There's a movie called The Shadow Effect, where somebody is really excels at accounting at work, but they cannot even pay their bills at home, right? They don't even know how to balance their so there's very visual pictures of what is shadow, right? What's the dark shadow in a human's life? Like there's a person that cleans his front yard, like has a Buddha statue, but when he opens the door, it's like the hoarder's nasty dishes and yucky home inside. Like you don't even want to enter that home. But if you look on the outside, it's like pristine. And so you see him sweeping the Buddha statue. She did an excellent job putting that movie together because, you know, it hits you. What is the shadow? Who was the guy? The Tuban guy. You know, that is like the moment that news article came out about what's his name? Somebody did something on Zoom, right? They exposed themselves on Zoom, and that was like their shadow. Like the moment I see something like that, I know it is that human's shadow that came through. Nothing to do with that's an unconscious pattern, right? That's the compassion that we have. Eileen, did you want to say something about resistance, and then we'll move to Zachary's question?
Yeah, if Zachary will stop talking. I was just going to say, from my understanding, which obviously isn't as great as yours, but from my understanding, I saw it as like denial is a form of resistance, and that resistance is a form of denial. So it's like they're a form of one another. Doesn't necessarily mean that they're exactly the same thing, because they exist sort of differently. But I do think they're each part of the other, because if you are denying like if you are in denial, then you're obviously denying what is, which is a form of resistance. And if you're resisting something, then that means you're denying what is, which is a form of denial. So that's just how I processed that question.
Thank you, Eileen. Let's look at Zachary's question. Zachary wants to know if the other planets also have a magnetic pull force like the moon has with us here on Earth.
Yeah, he doesn't like to listen to his mother, but he'll listen to you.
Kelly,
I
did you want
muted
to quickly...
myself, but I don't think you heard what he just said. You guys are smarter than I am.
Yeah, the parents are never smart, Eileen. You can
No,
get a
no.
master's degree or you can get a
No.
PhD, but you're not going to be smart. You can be a 4.0 GPA.
This
but-
one used to tell me when he was in 4th grade, like, you don't know this stuff. And I'm like, wait, I teach 4th grade. I teach that exact same math unit. I do know how to do that. Yeah. So I've been dealing with that for years.
Kelly, did you want to quickly answer that one and then we'll move to his second question? Because I think
Sure.
the second question requires discussion, but this can be quickly answered. Go ahead.
Sure. Short answer is yes. The moon is closer to the Earth, so it has a more direct, palpable, physical interaction with humans because we are 70, 80, 90% water. And the moon has an electromagnetic pull on the Earth's tides because this gravitational pull of the moon and how it affects water on the planet, which is why it affects humans on the planet too, because we have so much water in us. Other planets in the solar system, yes, absolutely. Although it's different because they're not as close. This is why understanding the historical context for planetary symbolism is really, really important because that will generally tell us what kind of effect planets are having. Saturn and Jupiter, I mean, depending on whether or not you're Greek or Roman, one or the other would, be a symbolic god of war and or building or creation or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So looking at that type of symbolism is really important in terms of how our energies are interacting with planetary energies. And I'll just, there's a whole bunch of information there, but short answer is yes.
Thank you, Kelly.
Oh, I just want to add, and there's no such thing as being more smart than another person. There's just such a thing as more information. So if a person does not have the information, then it just means that they do not have the information. It's got nothing to do with smartness or intelligence.
And Google is a great thing to know everything about this whole world. It's the encyclopedia. Thank you, Kelly. So the second question is, Zachary asks, as you get older, bigger, is the soul then getting smaller and smaller, and then it's gone and it's back to the universe, infinity? April, did you want to answer that question?
The answer is no. As you in your physical form get bigger and older, your soul is not getting smaller and then leaves your body. Actually, a lot of the times the opposite happens. Your soul gets bigger. Your body deteriorates because it has physical organs, and old people shrink, and we tend to shrink as we get older, and the soul actually tends to get closer to source and bigger and brighter many times, not all the time. So the answer would be no. Actually, it would be the opposite. I feel that our soul gets bigger as we get closer to moving on.
Thank you, April. Travis, did you want to answer that question from Zachary? Do you want me to type it?
Sure. That would be helpful.
Copy and paste.
Okay, let's see. The physical form, older and bigger. Soul then getting smaller and smaller. Okay. Well, let's see. We're talking about two things here. One is the body, this incarnation that we happen to be for a period of time. It exists for, you know, up to 100 years or so. And that is kind of like a pair of pants for your soul. And then it wears out. And so it's you use it for a while, it serves you, or like an automobile, it's a vehicle. And so it's our way of experiencing life. The soul, I've been reflecting on this due to these panel conversations. It probably sounds funny for anyone to speak as an absolute authority on the soul because it's hard to prove anything about it. But my assessment and understanding of what the soul is so far, and this is all just where I'm at the moment with all of this, is that the birth of the soul is the beginning of the sense of differentiated self, which is what one could call the ego, a separate sense of self. And I think a lot of times in spiritual context, the ego is always seen as bad. You want to get rid of it, don't do it. Or people talk, we use the term egomaniac. And you do ultimately, it serves its purpose. Ultimately, we transcend egoic state of being. And that is, you could say it's okay. It's like a door. When the soul is born, the differentiated self, it's as if you step, if there was a room you were in and that was the absolute, you've stepped out of that door and into the realm of the relative and differentiated, separate things exist in relation to one another. And so, so then what happens, we go on this crazy soul journey, and we're enriched, I think, made a little bit deeper through it, a little bit wiser, a little bit more loving, a little bit more, we're just enriched through it. And then we go through that door again. So you could say it's the death of the soul, but that's just saying you're exiting, that's the exit side of the door, but you're entering into being born again as the absolute, where you're one with everything. You're one with the cause. You don't see yourself as separate from anyone or anything else. And you cease to be identified with things that are time bound, things that begin and end. Now your identity is beginningless and endless. And that's our essential self, our deepest self. And so you have the body, which is a housing for the soul. When the soul is a differentiated sense of self that before it was differentiated was as one with all, and then it has a lifespan as well. And then when it ends, then you're born to you could say, you almost say your true soul. Nobody talks like that, but I'm just throwing these things out there to entertain. But it's instead of the soul of one who sees themselves as limited in any which way, it's the beginning of the realization of the deepest truth, reality of the fact that we are, the essence of who we are is not limited in any way. So if that's useful, I hope so, because it was a little long-winded, but thanks.
So the infinity is actually the loss of the body when we move in the other realm. When we are in the other realm is when we are moved to infinity. So as long as we are in this body, the soul is going to be the soul. It's not going to grow. The growing is more like an expansion, right? But it's not going to, it's not like a physical size growth.
Yeah, I don't see the soul as growing it. You could say maturity, spiritual maturity. We become more and more mature and less immature, would be one way to put it. And we do return to the one, the source. We every night we die and go to bed, and it's called sleep. And then in between bodies, we die and return to the source, and then inhabit another body. So long as we see ourselves as separate, we will exist as a separate entity.
So I'm going to tie it. I posted a question from Kelly. Kelly said, we must keep improving, right? It ties into your expansion that the soul needs to improve itself. That's the evolutionary. Eckhart Tolle in A New Earth says that's the evolutionary impulse of the universe, is to grow. Look at maybe whenever this earth was formed, like what, 50,000 years ago or a million years ago, or how many ever million years ago, there was like a single-celled organism. That single-celled organism now grew into, look at all the creatures in the sea, and then into the amphibian, then into the birds, if you follow the Darwin theory. So it is constantly expanding. That's the evolutionary impulse. So even the soul is expanding. It wants expansion.
Right. But all of everything you're describing pertains to the relative. In the universe, everything that is created exists relative. And so it's with beginning and end. And so what I say is that it's most vital that we are able to rest our attention on and recognize that which cannot be improved upon. It's utterly mysterious and most subtle reality, and that, because I have, I verify it for everyone, should verify it for themselves. But my experience is that there is indeed that which cannot be improved upon. That's my favorite. Because it's that upon which all else depends. All that can be improved upon depends upon that which cannot be improved upon. That's why I like it so much. So anyway, I'm gonna mute myself.
But what Zachary is saying is he's equating the soul to that, what you're saying, that cannot be improved upon. But what can be improved is our experience, our depth of experience with that eternal dimension, the transcendent dimension, or what we call soul. In colloquial language, we may say soul, but that is the depth, right? Our the depth to which we can experience it. And we started today's Facebook Live Q&A, Travis. You won't believe it, with this exact pointer, that we need to increase the depth of our experience of the transcendent dimension. This is like the perfect time, the way the planets have aligned because of the winter solstice.
I think there's a we know we're getting close to the truth when we encounter paradox like in this way. So it can't be totally understood. So but I think that because we're talking about these two things that seem almost like something different, but it's the same. There's the absolute, there's the relative, and what is what, but it's there's a deep inner knowingness that we can discover or tap into. But it's a very tricky thing to speak to. What we're so I commend all of us.
Thank you, Travis.
Yeah.
Yes, words, the thou shall remain nameless. If you speak it, then it no longer is a thou. So Eileen, did you want to speak to this topic of Zachary's and give your wisdom? Be smarter than the rest of us?
Apparently my wisdom doesn't count. I was just trying to interpret what he meant and was explaining that it wouldn't necessarily get what an 11-year-old would think of as smaller or bigger, because you're not going to have more or less energy. It's all that same energy field and energy source. It's the physical form itself that's changing. But I think he was onto something, that it's, that soul is there even if it's not changing, but then does go back and connect to source. But you guys did freak him out a little bit when you talked about it connecting to source when he's sleeping. Because Travis used the word, he's going to die. And then he's like, wait, I die when I go to sleep? And I was trying to explain that part. Still working on that. But yes, I think I agree. Having fun times over here.
Did you say that your soul leaves your body and goes, maybe has gone to Michigan and has gone to South Asia and come back into your body?
And so I was explaining, it connects to source in various ways. And then he wants it to be his own soul. He doesn't want to connect with another person. He's something else.
There is no my soul and your soul and other soul. It's all one soul.
I should just stay unmuted the whole time. You guys would have a good time.
Thank you, Eileen. Yes. Kelly, did you want to speak to this question from Zachary? Thank you.
Sure. Short answer is the soul does not get smaller. It only evolves and grows. I have a very unique perspective on this. I do not consider the body to be a vehicle for the soul. I consider the physical body to actually be a direct expression of the soul. And the reason for this is because all of our molecular bonds or atomic bonds are connected by energy. And our soul is energy. Everything, the arrangement of all of these molecular bonds are a direct reflection of our soul and the desire of our soul to connect with specific experiences and to maximize and seed our reality with the maximum potential for evolution and growth. And this is particle physics. This is quantum mechanics in terms of the resonance, the information in our expression in 3D reality of our soul's information, our soul contracts. Now, while yes, at the level of source, everything is one, I also believe quite adamantly that there are aspects of expression of soul energy that are slightly individualized. I mean, we have hierarchies of light, we have angels, we have principalities, we have archangels, we have ascended masters, we have yogis and gurus. So if the physical body is a direct expression of the soul, and what we are doing right now is we are interacting through our limited 3D 5 senses, then what happens to the information from all the other levels of reality that we are not visually, auditorily, physically conscious of or capable of directly experiencing? And this goes into what Travis was saying about how it's hard to substantiate certain things when it comes to talking about the soul and sort of the metaphysics of reality. And this goes, for me, this speaks directly to why I practice Qigong, why breathwork is so important, why meditation is so important. Because like when we sleep, we shift realities. And when we sleep, we have a natural capacity to shift gears energetically and go into different realities and different levels of information that we are connected with. And this, in my experience, tends to be very individualized according to our soul contracts, and the expression of this vehicle of creation's expression, the pinprick through the veil that our body actually is, in terms of the fullness of creation expressing itself in a physical body. And while this is a wonderfully, pleasant question from Zachary, this is also a very, very deep subject. This is a very multi-layered and multi-dimensional subject, because there are a lot more dimensions to reality than just the 3 dimensions that we are so used to. And because we're so used to just 3 dimensions, we like to forget. And the illusion causes us to forget that there is a lot more to reality. And this is why being able to go inside and connect through our heart to source is so important. Because when you get to a place where you can feel and you can discern the types of information and the difference in feeling between mental information, cognitive somatic information, and heart space eternal information, and thank you, Travis, for bringing that up, because the eternal is what we want to connect to. And I absolutely agree with Travis about how there are things that are unchanging. There are things in that are just eternal. The cosmic laws of creation are eternal, and they are unchanging and unmutable. And this is why, the stars twinkle at night, and why we're all here on this planet, is because there is that immutable law of creation, of expansion and growth and vibration and frequency. And this is why we are all here, because this corner of creation has decided to have this profoundly multifaceted expression of this law of creation, the contraction, and the depth of energy and vibration. I mean, that's, we're just so used to this 3-dimensional reality and our limited 5 senses that it often is very hard to contemplate more. And yeah, Travis, you're absolutely right. When we go to bed, we experience that little death of shifting realities. And that's the whole point of going inside and connecting with the present moment, is understanding how to consciously do that, so that we can experience deeper and deeper connection with ourselves and see the eternal now, the eternal presence of creation, everything.
Thank you, Kelly. I see that Caesar has joined from the road, I think. Good evening, Caesar. Did you want to answer the next question from Kelly that says, how many dimensions are there?
Oh God, well, 5 that I know of, but I'm sure there's plenty more. I don't have the answer to that, but I can tell you from endless counts of people's testimonies that there are most definitely at least 5. That would be the short answer. Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you, Caesar.
Thank you.
Does anybody else want to answer that question, or we want to take up another question? Since there's one answer. Go ahead, Kelly.
Depending on which text you look at, the raw material, Book of Enoch, some of the Barbara Marciniak stuff that actually talks about the other dimensions. There, in yoga, the chakras are actually connected to dimensions. In Taoist cosmology, and being the bridge between heaven and earth, concepts of multidimensional and multifaceted integrations of dimensions, there are at least 8 that are directly connected to the physical body. A good book is Initiations, Human and Solar, which talks about the layers of energy around the human body in the aura. And those correspond to different dimensions of information that we are connected to as humans. And in Qigong, in the medical Qigong that I've learned, there are dimensions of information for every meridian in the body, every major meridian in the body. And there are governing vessels of this information. And there are 12 main lateral meridians and 12 linear meridians. So 24 dimensions of information. So depending on what you're reading or what you're looking at, there are I mean, the most obvious next one after the third dimension is the fourth dimension, which is time. And that's always a fun one to discuss, because that's sort of like the pivotal crux of the concept of the illusion of human reality is time, is linear time. Anyhow, depending on, well, even in the Seth material, and the nature of human reality, she talks about the different dimensions and different layers of reality. So the largest number that I've heard is 365, which is an interesting number, because that kind of corresponds to the number of days in a year, right? Which would then sort of speak to a very deliberate aspect of creating human existence and creating the earth to have 365 days a year, so that every single day we rotate through a subtle layer of multidimensional information. Anyhow, I could go on, but I'll stop there.
Thank you, Kelly. I would say first, let's get some kind of handle on the 3D world. Then we can go into another dimension, right? We don't even have the handle of the world as it exists right now. So let me see what other questions. Okay, I think we've done all the questions that are here. Let me look at the.
And I know George joined us, but I'm not sure if he has a question for the live panel or not.
Thank you, Eileen, for the reminder. George, did you have a question for us?
No, I do not have a good question prepared yet. I'm sorry. I'd rather to wait and get the right question. So far,
Sure.
yeah.
Thank you, George.
Thank you.
Thank you for your presence.
Thank you for inviting me.
Una, may I add something?
Go ahead, Caesar.
I caught, I was able to tune in briefly on the way in, and I caught something in regards to a question that pertained to, had something to do with the magnetic pull of the moon and how it affects people. And I just wanted to add something that
Go ahead.
it was an interesting fact that I believe was spoken by Sadhguru, if I'm not mistaken, and that was about how we're not supposed to sleep with our heads facing the north, because of the genetic makeup of our blood having iron in it. Actually gets pulled up to our head slowly, and he basically was saying that that is how unknown brain aneurysms happen, by just getting, the smaller the closer to the brain that your blood vessels get, they actually get smaller. And basically what he was pointing out was that it just takes an extra speck of blood to make it in there. And that's basically possible by being pulled in through the magnetic pole from the north, depending on where you live. In the States, for the most part, we are, that would be the North Pole for us. And so he just I just wanted to add that interesting point.
Thank
How
you,
our blood gets
Caesar.
pulled up to the head. Yeah.
Thank you, Caesar. I changed my bed to east-west for that reason, after he said that. So that my head faces east. I don't know if it's the right thing, but I sleep east-west. So
Anything but north.
the other pointer that, and I wanted to bring this in, even with the multidimensionality, he says the sun and the earth are, so the diameter of the sun is 108 times of that is the distance between the sun and the earth. And 108 times, so 108 has a great significance to the people on this planet. And I think even the chakras are 108. The openings are, I mean, he says 4 are outside, it's 112, 108. So when we, in India, there's a very popular mantra called the Gayatri Mantra. I don't know, Travis, if you've heard of it, but we repeat it 108 times. Every time it starts, we repeat it 108 times. That's even the Rudraksh, if anybody knows, which is the beads that we like we rotate the necklace, it's 108 beads. So it has a great amount of significance. There's another question from Kelly. How do you integrate the shadow into being? April, did you want to get started on this? How do you integrate shadow into the being?
How do I integrate the shadow into being?
Or
The
did you want to
shadow-
answer?
The
did you want to
shadow
answer?
as far as the pain body? The shadow as far as your past traumas? Not sure if that's what they're, not, how do you integrate that into being?
The shadow would be like what the example that I was giving you. Like somebody is not aware that they are horrible at managing their own finances, but they are like the greatest accountant. So they are not accepting the inadequacy of their own financial, being able to keep up their financial well-being. They cannot pay their bills, right? Or like the person who, that's their shadow. They don't want to look at that side. And I think both Travis and Kelly quite a few times, our mind will not allow us to look in those dark corners, right? The shadow is something
Yeah.
that we don't want to be push it away. The other,
I just think that when they say integrate, to me, that really means heal, release. Because I don't want to integrate it into I don't want it to be into my being, right? I don't want it to be in my person, my body, the shadow, the pain, the hurt, the elephants in the room. I don't want those integrated into my being, but I think if we're looking at integration more of healing and releasing, to me, the first step is knowing. When you are able to come out of the shadow, out of the darkness, and know, oh, I have darkness. Oh, I have a shadow. Oh, I have something. There's something that needs to be healed. To me, that's the greatest step. That's the awareness that I have issues. I have pain. I have trauma. I have whatever. I can't pay my bills. I can't clean my, whatever that is, that's the hugest, biggest first step for me. And I'm always so happy when anybody gets to that step, when I get to that step. And I still get to that step, even though I do these things and I have this knowledge. There are still things that I stop and I look and I say, you know, you kind of got to work on that, right? That is the shadow. That is, so I don't want to integrate it. I want to heal it. I want to look at it. I want to observe it. I want to understand it. I want to basically replace it with compassion and love. And then I want to release it, right? So to me, that's how you do it. Is first is the awareness. Then you start working on it. You start looking at it. You start healing it. You replace it with love, ultimate God love, unconditional love for yourself, for it, for they, for them. And then now, I guess you could say you're integrated, but you're at a wholeness basis with you, God. That's, so that would be what I would do. And I think the next question kind of falls in line with that too, as far as like, well, it's a little bit different. It's karma. It's kind of the same. So that's what I
Karma
would do.
is looking at your shadow, or shadow
Yeah,
is
it's kind
part
of the
your
same.
karma.
Yeah.
So I think like a minimum of awareness needs to arise. If there is no awareness, right? Today I posted something about Eckhart. I don't know if it was in the New Earth or in The Power of Now, where Eckhart says choice, saying that somebody chose a dysfunctional relationship or dysfunction, would not be actually the right thing to say. And this takes like an enormous amount of presence to understand, even to have a choice to change, right? Requires a little bit of awareness. If we didn't have awareness, we would just keep repeating the conditioned patterns. We would just act out the conditioned pattern, right? We would be unconscious. Like we would keep repeating the pattern. We would keep being in that shadow, keep doing the not paying bills kind of thing. Thank you very much, April, on your insight. Travis, you raised your hand. You wanted to say something about it. Go ahead.
I think if we can just bring in the light, the shadows will dispel all their own. We just bring in the light.
But bringing in the light is the hardest part.
Oh.
Right?
I don't know. I mean, it's not as hard as you know, perpetuating. It's challenging, but it's much more enjoyable than feeding into cycles of anguish and dismay. So it's a worthwhile challenge if it's challenging. I don't think it has to be challenging to bring in the light. It is in a way, and it isn't in a way.
I think they have to be like Travis, they have to be kind of, you know, at that level though, because like the people I work with, they don't even know there's a light. Like they're not even aware. But like, you know, Eileen is saying she's meditating more and more. Louise is her famous you know, suggestion is just meditate. It all goes away. But I think you got to be at a certain, like I had a client one time that said to me, he goes, I didn't know I had issues until I talked to you. I said, oh, okay. But he had these patterns and I was like, don't you see this pattern that you're doing? And he's like, well, I didn't know I had issues till I talked to you. So, so I think the awareness to me, like when I see somebody get that awareness, that's like, I'm like, ah, yes. Okay. Now we can do something. Now we have the, you know, but I think you're right. But once you're at that level, then yes, bring universe, God, light in. And Wayne Dyer said that to Deepak, right? He said, Wayne Dyer said, I have this issue. I call my friend Deepak. Deepak says, go meditate. And he said, that's all he tells me, go meditate all the time. Right? But that's where the answer is going within, going to source. Yeah.
The integration is integrating with source, and then it dispels the. Did you have anything else, Travis?
No, I don't think so. I mean, it's just that, I mean, I can't help myself but to say the things that I say. But to me, it seems as though in all actuality, there is but the light alone. There is none other than that. There's only the absence thereof, which isn't, which you know what I mean, which has no existence in and of itself anyhow. So what, we have misconceptions of what is, but I guess just in terms of, I like poetry and I like metaphors, and in thinking of shadows, I just go, well, if there's the light, if a brighter light comes in, the shadow isn't around that, if you're a source of light, shadows aren't an issue. If the source of light is from somewhere outside of oneself, shadows can become an issue. So for me, I just like it because people use these shadow stuff, and I don't really always know what it means. The shadow work, and I go, what is that shadow work? I kind of get it, but it's just like a term I hear a lot, and so I just, but
Shadow
something
work,
like
shadow work can be you're a Palestinian and you hate Jewish people and you don't know.
yeah, I mean, I get it too. It's
right. That's the
I'm just stoked on the light, I guess. And
at the cellular level of your karmic pattern, it's written that you're Palestinian or vice versa, right? You're a Jewish person and then you hate, or you're a Jewish person and then you're going to hate Nazi Germany, right? So Germans and Jewish people are going to have this tension between them. And you don't know why the tension exists, right? So that's the shadow. That's a collective dark shadow.
No, I hear you. I think I'm in a interesting space at the moment or something. So there's no need for me to keep rambling though. So I'll let somebody else speak.
Thank you, Travis. In this passage, he says, I know that the word choose is a favorite New Age term, but it isn't entirely accurate in this context. It is misleading to say that somebody chose a dysfunctional relationship or any other negative situation in his or her life. Choice implies consciousness, a high degree of consciousness. Without it, you have no choice. Right? So if they don't have a high degree of consciousness, they're not going to know that they were, what does he say later on? This means that you're compelled to think, feel, and act in certain ways according to the conditioning of your mind. That is why Jesus said, forgive them for they know not what they do. They were completely unconscious of what they were doing, right? So thank you, Travis. Caesar, did you want to speak about I think this is going to be the last question. Go ahead.
We're talking about now we're off the shadow thing, right? Or are we still talking about the shadow?
How do you integrate the shadow into being?
Yeah, that's a tough one for me. Again, I'm not really familiar with the term. What I just picked up on from what I heard from you folks is that the shadow can be a good thing if it's brought into awareness, and Travis, I guess, hit it on the head, saying, "Bring it to the light, that of the darkness." but you would have to know what the ailments are to be able to. So there would be the contrast that would allow you to recognize that and then address it in whatever way you had to. That's going back to what April was saying about not knowing you had this. Once you can identify that there is something there that needs to be addressed, well, of course, then I can move forward. But until that happens, yeah. So I mean, just like I have some advice that I typically give people is that when they feel any bit of unease, this is totally stuff that to just kind of be aware of it and then embrace it. Don't try to analyze it. You can identify what it is that you're feeling, but to simply embrace it. And then, once that process takes place within you because of the full acceptance and you allowing it to be, it literally dissolves. And, them are just pockets of resistance that keep coming up. But once you are able to do that, most definitely dissolves into the light of consciousness, so to be. So, yeah, once you're aware of the ailments or whatever it is that's at hand, you are able to dissolve it into the light, address it, embrace it, accept it, and move forward in whatever way. And that's pretty much all I got for the shadow work stuff there.
Thank you. Thank you, Caesar.
Thank you.
Kelly, did you want to wrap it up with this last question? How to integrate shadow and being? Thank you.
Sure. Shadow work is something that I've been doing for 20 plus years. The space that I'm in now in terms of this subject is that, I'll put it in real basic simple terms. Shadow is just information. Shadow is your karma. Shadow is how you interact with your awareness and your understanding of your awareness consciously or unconsciously, which is also karma. Working with shadow is about stopping your mind, integrating shadow into your being or healing the separation between yourself and your light in alignment with source. And shadow is basically about stopping your mind and becoming still inside and becoming aware of the barriers and the resistance and the denial of seeing your shadow or seeing those places that you resist looking at because you're in denial that they even exist. And oftentimes until people actually start looking, they have no idea. As April said, her one client's like, I didn't know I had issues until I started talking to you. I didn't know I had issues until I started looking at this stuff and looking at the way my mind was programmed by my, family interactions, my societal interaction, my cultural context, being a white male and all that. Shadow work is very simple, but it's also very hard because it is one of those things where you have to be aware that there are things to do and take care of and heal and integrate. Bye, Eileen. And shadow work is just the same thing as working on karma. It is all about stepping into observation. It's all about going inside and becoming aware of the separation between ourselves and our light and our connection with source. And it has everything to do with being able to discern, Travis, as you said, between your space of understanding the light and wanting to know that light and bring more in, so that in a sense it does dispel the shadow, because the more you are disciplined, the more you are focused on going inside, the more light you anchor and the more information about yourself you bring in and become aware of through knowing your heart space. And this is what builds that toolbox of being able to understand how to do the healing, how to have that internal conversation, how to be in observation and observe your shadow or your mind, basically your programming, like all of your emotional defense mechanisms that come to the fore and go, ooh, shiny, and like distract you from the stuff that you should be looking at and working on and healing. And this is also how you access Christ consciousness, is by quieting the mind, is by stepping into observation, by understanding the spaces of resistance and denial. And again, just like going right back to the front of the whole panel discussion tonight, resistance and denial and understanding those feelings are so important, because when you understand when they are present, Phone's running here. When you understand the present moment, see if my dad picks up, and you can go inside and listen and discern the difference, Travis, as you said, the contrasts. When you can understand the contrast between being inside and in your heart and in alignment and connected to that space versus when you're pulled out and in your head or in drama or anxiety or fear comes up, when you step back into observation, every single time you step back into observation, you build up that momentum to create a stronger light in your heart, stronger connection with your heart. The stronger your connection is with your heart, the stronger your light becomes, the stronger your inner space becomes, the stronger your inner voice becomes, the more clarity you develop for yourself so that you can integrate your shadow, you can integrate your karma, you can heal it, you know, however, whether or not you want to call it integration or healing, to me, it's the same thing. In my experience, it's the same thing. So the concepts of, you know, integrating shadow is the same thing as working on karma, because it has everything to do with how we are aware consciously of our own awareness and how we are or are not aware of what we need to work on to connect with peace and calmness and loving kindness in our hearts. And that is where the whole process of going inside and understanding how different things are from when we are kids and how we grow and develop the capacity. Oh, my dad must be sleeping. How we develop greater and greater capacity as we develop into adults to become more and more clear about how we need to heal. And I mean, sometimes for some people, it never happens. Some people just go through their entire lives completely unconscious. And that is also part of the journey of this planet. A lot of people are here just for the ride, because there are some of us who are able to be more conscious and who are able to anchor light and to be conscious enough to heal and give ourselves that space, to develop that space, to have the courage to look inside, look at all those places, you know, we're in, we don't want to look at, that we're in denial or even existing, and, you know, learn how to accept and build capacity to be more in loving kindness, love ourselves, love those around us, and discipline ourselves to be conscious and aware and mindful and aligned with our heart. Simple answer, it's all about quieting and stilling the mind. And that takes care of both shadow and karma. Because when you develop that discipline, that's about going inside. That's about being present. It's a very simple way of putting it, but in a lot of respects, it is that simple, but there's a lot of work involved with developing that as a conscious discipline.
Thank you so much, Kelly. And it does tie back into the beginning. We were talking about resistance. What I would say is between the meditation, breath work, body work, you will begin to inhabit your body more and more. Like you will be able to experience the inner energy field of your body, and then you'll know your vibrational state. So, like I said, right, resistance is just a drop. It can be a drop like when we are what Abraham Hicks calls tuned in, tapped in, turned on, which is completely aligned with our inner beingness. We are like joyful, like there's so much, like the picture that Travis posted today of the sky and the tree and mistletoe. It was like I could experience his joy that poured into taking that picture, right? So when we are tuned in, tapped in, turned on, we are at the highest vibration. Any drop in that vibrational frequency, and you'll know it from your inner body. Where is the irritation starting, right? And that needs to be examined. Until we can inhabit our body, we will not know. And all these shadow everything will just remain as it is, because we won't have the capacity to go examine, hey, my vibrational frequency changed. I'll give you an example. I used to work from home in 2019, 2018, work from home most of the time. Then last year, I had to start going in, driving into work. When I started the part where I had to drive five days a week, I noticed my energy would drop towards the end of the day. Like I would be like at a peak of tuned in, tapped in, turned on as Abraham Hicks, and then the energy would drop. It's not like anger, it's not like irritation. And then I examined it and I realized that the fact that I have to drive 5 days a week, the traffic, handling traffic, like I wouldn't, I was going in rush hour traffic the first week. Then I realized the traffic patterns and I started working 7 a.m. till 4 p.m. so that I would miss some of the rush hour traffic. And that kind of like brought me back up in my energy. Then the gratitude that job, I went from one job to another in this economy 3 weeks. Like, and I still had the other job while within 3 weeks, I was offered, like the universe just, the art of allowing. When we are talking about art of allowing, this was like, I just said I didn't want to wear, I have only one suit. So I was like, I don't want to like go get it dry clean and then come go interview. Why does somebody not offer me a job over the phone? And they offered me within 3 days, somebody offered me the job on the phone, right? That level of alignment needs to be there. And look what the job does. It feeds all this, right? Like I have to pay for the Google Drive and the Zoom license, the Canva license. I mean, no disruption in my day-to-day routine, right? So that's what I would say is even that little slight lowering of your energy, examine it. Why did I? And then I had the gratitude that it's paying my bills, it's supporting the group meditation, it's supporting all the video, and that was sufficient. The gratitude completely back up high. And that's a constant vigilance, right? Eckhart calls it vigilance. So quickly, everybody wants to say something about Merry Christmas wishes. Caesar, you want to start? For everybody out there, and
Yeah, definitely like to wish everybody a Merry Christmas indeed. In this crazy time that we're going through, and I hope it's enjoyable. And do a little segment intending over the holiday weekends, and don't let nothing bring you down. Think of only positive things that make you smile. And in reference to what you were saying, don't let your cork be held underwater, in a sense. And I'm grateful for you guys. I apologize for being late. I just couldn't wait to get on and be with you guys because I did miss last week. So I can say how grateful I am for each one of you guys. And Merry Christmas to all, and Happy New Year's for sure. Maybe we'll meet again in between there, and maybe not. But this has all been a blessing. This has been a great year, regardless of what the media tells us. I'm grateful, and I hope to continue that. And thank you to everybody for making this possible and for allowing me to be a part of it.
thank you so much, Caesar.
Thank you.
April, did you want to say something about Christmas?
I just want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas. I also want to say thank you to each one of you. And I'm going to take Travis's perspective and just try to love everything. Love the floors, the walls, the food, the people, love it all. Just love it all. So, Merry Christmas.
If the food is not too good, love it. If the food is good, love it. Thank you for everything. I have no complaints whatsoever. Thank you, April. Travis, did you want to wish Christmas wishes?
Yeah, well, I'm just so grateful for all of you. This feeds me and serves me in ways that You guys don't even know. So I'm just so grateful for all of you, and for everybody who watches this and and chimes in. It's just such a wonderful blessing to have found this, or this found me, or whatever. It's just great. So I don't know what to say other than Merry Christmas to everybody, and you know, I just we all have so much. We all have so much, even when we think we don't. You know, we're on a planet out in space, and it's just amazing. It's just amazing all that we have. So I hope we all see it all the more and cherish all we have all the more. So Merry Christmas.
Thank you, Travis.
Yeah.
Kelly, Christmas wishes?
Yeah. Happy solstice, happy Yule log day and Odin's day, and depending on whichever aspect of reality you're participating in. I know for those of us out there who celebrate Hanukkah. Hanukkah happened recently. So yeah, just, you know, season's greetings, Merry Christmas, or Merry Mass of the Anointed Light of Zeus. I don't know, whichever direction you want to go. Yeah, it's great to be here. Very grateful for the opportunity to be an observation and share and converse on these topics. They're always important to have conversation, especially two-way conversation. And yeah, lots of love, and wishing everyone lots of joy and light.
Thank you so much, Kelly. I will reiterate everything that y'all said. Infinite gratitude that for everyone out there, for all of you here on the panel. Like, I'm deeply humbled. It's an honor and a privilege that we are having these conversations that actually, this was the main reason why I started the group, is just one post or one word or one something make a shift in another person's consciousness, and then they make a shift, they make a shift, they make a shift. And we've been able to do that between the panel and the group meditations. So I am eternally grateful. Merry Christmas. Have a joyous holiday season. Bring your presence power with all the dysfunctional uncle and aunts and nieces and nephews. Just meditate before you go and attend, right? Many blessings, everyone. Much love. Good night. Good day.